Welcome guys to my first actual video. In this video we're going to look at 8 tips for intermediate Expo players. These are tips that I discovered quite late on and would have helped me out a great deal in the beginning. So I hope you enjoy and we'll get straight into it. So tip number 1 is going to be to use cycle cards effectively. I think it's far too easy to just cycle them in the back and not really give it much thought. However, as I'm showing in these clips here, you can actually use skeletons to completely counter Bandit, Electro Wizard, Musketeer, and many other cards. So it is important that you recognize the value of these cards and be able to utilize it by knowing these specific interactions. Now there's many other videos that go into far more detail, so I will try link one of those in the description. So if you want to learn those, you can go ahead and have a look. However, secondly, also important to recognize when these cycle cards may actually be an effective counter to one of your opponent's cards. For example, if your opponent has mini P.E.K.K.A, it would be much more efficient to use skeletons to counter it completely for 1 elixir, compared to if you had cycled skeletons in the back, then you would have to use either Ice Golem to kite, and then Ice Spirit, or Archers plus Ice Spirit if you were wanting to defend your archers. The second tip might sound a bit daft, but it is to remember that a fireball has a 360-degree knockback effect. This might seem like something obvious, but you probably aren't using this knowledge to your full advantage. It is most commonly used in a balloon matchup, where you can fireball the balloon at the top of the fireball radius in order to knock it backwards or sideways. Useful if you have misplaced a Tesla. But it can also be used to knock troops forward. I use this most commonly if I split archers in the back and the opponent uses a musketeer behind their king tower. If you fireball the musketeer when it's at the edge of the fireball's radius, it knocks the musketeer forward, which allows the single archer to take it out before the musketeer can shoot it. This leaves you with a single archer on full health that can chip away at the tower, and it also gives the opponent less time to place something like an ice golem in front of the musketeer to protect it. However, knocking troops forward can be a dangerous game. If you panic fireball a mini P.E.K.K.A that's near your tower, and you hit it on the lower edge of the fireball's radius, this can actually knock it forward onto your own tower, which is probably something you want to avoid. And tip 3 is to learn the main Tesla placements. This placement here, 2 tiles from the bridge, will pull a hog when pre-placed. This next placement here, 1 tile from the bridge, will make it so that if they earthquake, they cannot hit both the Tesla and the tower. This works for poison and lightning too. This placement, 3 tiles from the bridge, allows both towers to hit the hog rider, allowing the Tesla to live for a little bit longer, useful when there's bigger pushes. This placement here pulls the giant outside of the tower's shooting range, which means that it can help out to defend against the graveyard. This isn't always that useful, as giant decks tend to have musketeer, but if they have it out of cycle, this could be a placement you could use. This placement here is the standard placement for giant, golem, or any kind of beatdown deck, which is 4 tiles from the bridge, as this allows both towers to hit the tank to take it out as quick as possible. Here we have a balloon placement, which is 5 tiles from the river and 1 to the right, and this will take out the balloon and I'll leave the Tesla on pretty much full health. So tip 4 is to count elixir. Well, kind of. So as you can see in this replay here, both mine and the opponent's elixir is being displayed. This is a similar view to what you get when spectating. So my advice would be, if you're struggling to gauge how much elixir your opponent is on, you could spectate yourself. To do this, all you need is either 2 devices, in which you could create a different account on one of them and spectate yourself during the game so you can see the opponent's elixir. Or if you don't have 2 devices, you can ask a friend or family member to watch the game, spectate it themselves, and then ask them how much elixir the opponent is on at crucial parts in the game. This can be very useful in developing the skill of actual elixir counting. You could test yourself by trying to keep track of elixir for 30 seconds and then comparing what you thought your opponent was on versus what they are actually on. Finally, this method could be very useful if you are pushing on ladder and seeking to gain a new personal best this season. This could give you the edge in close games where you need to know where to pressure and where to defend. Tip 5 is to outcycle your opponent. In this clip here, we can see that when I go in for an Expo, the opponent counters with a P.E.K.K.A. I don't have enough Elixir to be able to counter this P.E.K.K.A. and defend my Expo, so instead of over defending by placing an Ice Golem or Tesla, I focus on cycling back to my Expo. As you can see here, I'm already back to my Expo, and he is still 3 cards away. This means I can go in for a Tesla to defend his Ram Rider, and then after that is defended, I can go in for an Expo knowing that he has Goblin Gang in hand, so I have my log ready, which I go in for, and then I go Ice Spirit to take out the Electro Wizard, and then even though he logs, we still get some decent chip damage. And this was all because we decided to outcycle instead of over defend. So tip 6 is going to be card counting. So this can be perceived as quite a complex subject, but really it can be simplified down to knowing that once your opponent plays a card, they have to play 4 more before they're back to it. This is particularly important to keep in mind when playing against Golem. So here we go in for an Expo which forces out his Golem. If we can defend this and he plays less than 4 cards, then he won't have Golem in cycle to be able to counter when we Expo again. So he E-Wizzes, so that is 1 card. However, he's got very little Elixir and won't be able to add any more. So we can clear this up very easily and then save up for another Expo. It is very easy to lose track of this, especially in an intense game. However, it is really important as it allows you to know when you can pressure and when you should wait. So in this case, I save up enough to Expo. However, this particular deck he is running has Valkyrie, a strange Golem deck, so we don't end up getting a lot of damage from this, but the same principle carries over to lots of different other situations. Tip 7 is to vary your Expo placements. There are 4 main placements you need to know. The first is this placement, 1 tile to the right or left. This is the one you will use the majority of the time, as it gives the least area in which they can place troops to distract your Expo. The next one is this central placement here. You might use this if your opponent is playing Royal Giant and you predict that they're going to place it on the inside, which is where most people tend to do it. If you place it like this, you can then place a Tesla to the right of the Expo, and this will make the Royal Giant target onto the Tesla, allowing you to take it out and keep your Expo at high health. The third placement is 1 tile to the left. This is useful against Golem and Lava Hound decks. It is useful against Golem because if you place a Tesla in the middle, this will kite it all the way over to the Expo and switch sides, giving you more time to destroy it. It's also useful against Lava Hound as it can separate the Lava Hound from the balloon. If you place a high Tesla, the balloon will go over to the Expo, assuming you're going opposite lane, and the Lava Hound will keep going straight forward. The final placement you need to know is this one. It is rarely used and would be most commonly used against a giant deck with not very many ranged cards. We can place it here, which would mean that the giant would have to walk all the way around to destroy your Expo. This gives you more time to set up Teslas, set up your defense, and gives you more time to DPS down the giant. This is probably the least useful one, but can still be useful given the right situation. Tip 8, and our final tip, is to remember how they counter your Expos. And this goes with each match, but also how decks tend to counter your Expos. In this replay here, I'm going against quite a common Royal Giant deck that's going around right now. So at this point, I know what he's going to do. So I Expo in the middle and then Tesla there to catch his Royal Giant, as this is how pretty much every Royal Giant player counters an Expo. they just wait and then place it on the inside. So by remembering how this matchup, or this particular deck counters Expo, I was able to predict that, and enabled me to get a lock, which won me the game. So that's going to be all. That was my 8 tips for intermediate Expo players. I hope these tips have helped you out, and if they have, feel free to let me know. If I've missed some stuff, also let me know. And if you enjoyed this, then perhaps leave a like, and I will be back with another video in a couple days' time. Thank you very much.